Aesthetics. So aesthetics is well, this is a very difficult to understand maybe, and certainly difficult to research aspect of culture. But you could say in groups of people who are a group based on geography, these are the people of Sardinia, or based on profession, these are the architects of the world, or based on religion, these are Catholics. So in these groups you will find that in such groups there are ideas about what is beauty and what is ugliness. Actually, in Italy you are very famous, very happy to have a famous author who recently wrote 2 books full of pictures on ugliness and beauty, Umberto Eco. And I bought his books both in Dutch and in Italian. Why in Italian? Because his examples are in fact examples taken from the Italian culture. But luckily he's got 2 ladies who translate all his books in Dutch, and the ladies exchange his Italian examples for Dutch examples. So even to speak about beauty is not a thing like translating Italian to Dutch. No, you have to find examples that the Dutch people recognize. So if you ever have a chance, look for the books of Umberto Eco to find out about aesthetics. It's a beautiful books with nice examples. So we will focus on aesthetics of communication, right? I'm not going to give you a lecture on the aesthetics of art. That's nice, and that's Umberto Eco's task to write books about that. But we will focus on aesthetics of communication. But if I give you some examples, and if you come up with examples yourself, you find out that it in fact overlaps with other things. So artifacts is things people make. Like this is an artifact. It's made by people. And this is an artifact. And we could speak of the beauty of these artifacts, or this one, by the way. This is very interesting to find this artifact in a lecture room in a university. But apparently it has its home here. So it's there, right? Now, artifacts are all around. Like we have this lamp. I'm very happy we have it, and it comes from your parents' house. Right, so in your parents' house is this artifact, which has some type of style, and it's colored in a way which, by the way, tells us about the history, about the life, the time this was made, because lamps are made for many centuries, and the electric lamps at least for 100 years, but if you look 10 years back, 20 years back, lamps look different. There's a style, and the style changes. So, and also, by the way, nature and the environment is a matter of beauty and aesthetics. If you look at Umberto Eco's books, you find out lots of his pictures are pictures of people, of beautiful people and ugly people. And sometimes people we consider ugly now were considered beautiful in the past. I mean, at a certain moment you might know in fashion, very thin ladies were considered beautiful. And in other periods, or in other cultures, like in some Indian tribes in North America, very heavy ladies were considered beautiful. And if a girl in some Indian tribes in North America wanted to marry, she was eating a lot, and when she was very big, then she was somebody, had a chance to be married to somebody, because this was the ideal, right? So even, let me say, nature and environment are beauty, but we will focus on communication. But my examples. So, this is examples of aesthetics. In fact, these examples are from the archaic period in Greece, which is about 500 before Christ. And what's the special thing of this? The special thing is that they show clothes, and the clothes were considered decent clothes that people that would wear if they had enough money to buy good clothes. So this is an adoring dress, And this is an example of a lady who was wealthy enough to buy a nice dress. And this is an example of a priest who should have a dress that showed that he was really acting on behalf of God. So the priest was an important person and his dress should show that. So aesthetics have to do with recognizing, wow, this is a beautiful dress in your circumstances. Now we would say this, if you would meet a lady like this on the street, you would say, this is funny. So now we are no longer considering this, but in 2,500 years ago, people living in Greece would say, I understand this is a person who has enough money to buy a beautiful dress, right? So, and another example, you all recognize this is the head of a violin. Actually, heads of a violin have been made like this since 1540. So this is 460 or 470 years long. And still on the newest violins that people are making now in a town like Cremona in Italy, they make it like this more. And people say this is the beautiful, the best, the most aesthetic, the most harmonic head of the violin. But in the 18th century in Germany, the Germans said this is actually much nicer. And the more expensive violins in the 18th century in Germany look like this. You see, so aesthetics could sometimes change a little bit. And if you would look in some modern violin makers, they say, no, we should come up with some more better. And so they take their cat and they make the head like this one. You see? And so in certain cultures nowadays, this is considered the top of aesthetics. But many people say, no, this is the one. This is not a real violin, this is the one. And actually, if you go to the Nordic countries like Norway and Sweden and Iceland, you will find an instrument which is actually a folk instrument, which it looks like a violin, but it's different, and it shows we are the Vikings, right? So it has a different aesthetics. So if you want your violin to look like something people recognize as a really nicely made instrument, you have to choose carefully. So guitars. Two different styles of guitar heads. Hopefully you recognize. I choose guitars because I think in your age you might know more about guitars than about violins, maybe, right? If you look on my webpage, you could see I'm playing violoncello, which is type of a very big violin, right? But, so, do you see that there are two different styles? Yeah? You see, these have the pegs on both sides, these have them on one side. Which of the four do you think is the oldest?
The oldest. The first on the left.
Sorry?
The first on the left.
Yeah. How old? It's true, this is the oldest. How old?
18th century.
Sorry?
18th century.
17 to 16.
18th century is a little bit too old. It's actually 1830, which is already quite old, right? So you can see that styles differ in periods, and at the moment, these two you can find in the same band on the same stage. Right? If you go to a pop concert, you might well have these and these next to each other on stage. Okay, so they are now considered both fashionable, acceptable, beautiful. Okay, so I'm not going to let you do another exercise, but I could say find examples of communication between cultures that may cause aesthetic problems because of the artifacts or the nature. So, like what faces do people consider beautiful faces or ugly faces, and communication. But you should understand that it's important. You should understand that if you choose in representing your services a picture of an artifact, let me say if there's a car rental company, and if you would like to show cars on the brochure or on the poster, it could make sense to consider whether this should be Fiat, Italian car, or Mercedes, or a Japanese car, or a Korean car, because the same artifact might be considered not so beautiful or not so nice if people are from different countries. Consider that, right? So the artifacts make sense. And the same is about the nature. So how do you represent, well, let me say there's a bed and breakfast, and you would like a picture of the bed and breakfast with a nice garden. Is there a garden? I don't know. Is there a garden at the bed and breakfast? No, there's not. Okay. But suppose that would be. Well, it makes sense to consider, would this garden be considered attractive? Because different cultures might have different ideas of what's an attractive garden. At least in the Netherlands we have at the moment a group of people, or actually a bigger group of people, that think nicely kept gardens are not nature. So a garden should be a patch of ground where everything grows, and everything that grows we leave there because we like nature, right? So, and in other countries gardens should be sharp hedges, and the trees should be nicely lined out. So even nature could make a difference. And I know that in some airline companies, ladies who want to be stewardesses should be between certain height. A very long stewardess apparently is not considered a nice lady. I'm sorry, but it happens, right? So, take care of that, right? End of the exercise.